Good morning, and today we're going to be reading Stand Straight, Ella Kate, read aloud by Mrs. Beckerer. The story is called Stand Straight, Ella Kate, and it is the true story of a real giant. It is by Kate Cleese, and the pictures are by M. Sarah Cleese. Most tall tales are made up, but my tall tale is true. I was a giant, a real live giant. I wasn't born tall. I was a little baby, just like any other, born in 1872. Mama and Papa named me Ella Kate. When I was still small, Papa went to the bank and borrowed money to buy a farm in a place called Rainbow, Missouri. He built a cabin from trees he cut down with his own two hands. When we were a little family, just Mama, Papa, and me. But I didn't stay little for long. When I was 7, I started growing at a most startling rate. Mama couldn't sew dresses fast enough to keep up, so she started adding fabric to the bottom of my favorite dresses. "Stand straight, Ella Kate," Mama said when she was fixing my hem. But when Mama wasn't looking, I would hunch my back so that I could look smaller. At school, I struggled mightily to fit my long legs under the desk, so Papa built a big desk for me. He brought it to school in a wagon pulled by horses. "Stand straight, Ella Kate, and show off your new desk," Papa said with pride. I guess he couldn't see how mortified I was. That means embarrassed. No other girl in my school needed a special desk or wore shoes as big as her paws. A men's size 12. My best friend was a girl named Pearl, just like her name. Pearl was small and beautiful. And when I got teased at recess on account of my size, Pearl suggested we run away. "We'll hide you in a secret place where no one will find you," Pearl said. She was only trying to be nice. But where was I going to hide? I was too big for everything. I was too big for the world. When I was 13, I stood almost 6 feet tall. My classmates chose me to recite the Declaration of Independence at a big 4th of July celebration. I was surprised and honored. People from 3 counties were going to be there. I practiced for weeks, and when it was time, I walked out on stage and began to recite the famous words. But I stopped cold when I heard a voice from the crowd. "Would you look at that girl?" cried one man. "She is as tall as a barn. Her hands are as big as skillets," laughed a woman. "I'll tell you what that girl is," yelled a boy. "She's a freak." I ran off the stage in tears. It's terrible. People are mean. Mama was upset too. She waited to cry until I had gone to bed. "Don't worry," Papa said. "No one's ever going to treat Ella Kate that way again. We'll keep her safe inside this house for as long as she lives." From my bed I listened, wishing that I could climb inside the big night sky and hide there forever. But I kept on growing, and by the age of 16 I was 7 foot tall. At 17 I was a foot taller. One day a man visited the farm. He managed a museum in Chicago. "I hear you have a daughter who's 8 feet tall," the man said. "My customers would pay good money to see that, and I'd gladly pay Miss Ella Kate for her time." My papa got mad. "Nobody's paying money to gawk at our girl," he fumed. But something inside me trusted the man. "I believe I'll take that job," I said. And so when I was 18, my parents and I boarded the train to Chicago. For 1 month, I wore a long dress and a serious expression for 7 hours a day while people stared at me. I made $1,000, which was a whole lot of money back in 1890. Back then, you could buy 12 pencils and a bottle of ink for a dime. It's 10 cents. Today, that would get you nothing. The following year, I received a letter from the man in Chicago asking me to return to his museum. This time, he wanted me to come for 5 months, and he offered to pay me $5,000. 5 months, Papa protested. That's too long. I don't mind, I said. Mama can come with me. Besides, $5,000 is nothing to sneeze at, Papa. It's more than you can make in 5 years of farming, I told him. And this was true, and Papa knew it. He laughed because I was becoming better at business than he was. I returned to Chicago in 1891, and for the next 6 years I traveled the country. I appeared in museums, exhibitions, traveling circus shows, and even a World's Fair. People paid 10 cents to see me stand in fancy dresses. You couldn't blame the folks for staring. After all, when I finally stopped growing at the age of 22, I stood a towering 8 feet 4 inches tall in my size 24 shoes. My hands were also impressive. Once I removed a ring from my finger and gave it to a baby to wear as a bracelet. It fit perfectly. Other times I held a $1,000 bill in my hand, and anybody who could reach the money unassisted was welcome to take it. But no one ever did. After I had made enough money, I went back to Rainbow. The first thing I did was visit the bank that had lent Papa the money to buy our farm. I paid off the debt. I figured it was the least I could do to thank Papa and Mama for all they had done for me. And then I did something for myself. I bought some land and started building a house. I paid workers with my own money, and I told them to build my house with tall ceilings and high windows. I ordered custom-built furniture. Finally, I had a house where I could stand up straight without stooping. I had the longest bed in town. I even ordered a custom-made buggy and bought a strong horse who could pull it. Friends and neighbors would like to visit me at my new home. They always asked to hear about my travels. I told them about the big cities and the newfangled automobiles I'd seen, which were brand new. I told them about big cities. I described the mountains and the oceans. I even imitated the tigers and the elephants that appeared with me at the circus. Most of my friends had never left home or seen any of these things. But the more I talked about my travels, the more I missed them. So year after year, I finished my house. The year after I finished my house, I returned to work. I enjoyed my days as a circus show star. Sometimes my unusual size came in handy. When I was introduced to Mr. Charles Ringling at a dinner party in 1907, I was able to shake his hand without moving from my place at the table at the other end. My friend, little Lord Robert, thought that was a fine and dandy trick. Another time when a bellboy brought ice water to my hotel room. Instead of opening the door, I reached through the transom, that's the little window at the top, and I retrieved the pitcher from his hands. I hope I didn't give him too much of a fright. I always tried to be respectful, and I found that most people were respectful in return. Of course, there was always one person in every crowd who couldn't resist making a cruel joke about my appearance. More than one rude spectator would stick my leg with a pin just to see if I was standing on stilts. When that happened, I just whispered to myself what Mama and Papa always told me when I was growing up. Stand straight, Ella Kate. The more I said it, the better I felt. And the more I saw the world, the more I wanted to see. Because as big as I was, the world was so much bigger. And I intended to see it all. And there's a picture, a primary source, an original picture of Ella Kate. Again, her condition was known as gigantism. They didn't know about this back in those days.